Hello and welcome back. My name is Rosie, and this is Sinister. So, today we have an absolutely atrocious crime involving a 5-year-old girl. It is super traumatizing. I'd seen her story over different platforms and covered in different platforms, and I just wanted to share her story. I think there is a bit of a snowball with different recounts of events coming out and certain things that didn't seem to be the case when I was doing my research, like stories that seemed a bit false being brought to people's attention more and being shared more. And they might be true, like no one knows unless they were there. I'm just going to share the facts that I found in the most verified sources. So, to warn you now, this case involves CSA or child sexual abuse, and we will discuss the death of a 5-year-old child. And this is one of the most tragic cases I've ever heard of. So, that is a massive warning now. Fair enough if you can't tolerate these types of cases. They're really sickening to listen to for the most part, but I think this is a story that needs to be shared. Now, I will also say there isn't a lot of coverage on this case. There's no verified documentary or like thorough rundowns. It's a lot of news articles that don't give a full story, so finding information on this case has been super tricky, and I've tried to use only verified information, but it's a really hard case with all the different information out. And today we are discussing the case of Shaniya Davis, which takes place in North Carolina in the United States. Shaniya Nicole Davis was born on the 14th of June 2004 in Fayetteville, North Carolina, to mother Antoinette Davis and father Bradley Lockhart. She was described as a happy, loving, friendly little girl. She loved playing dress-ups and Barbies and loved getting outside on her scooter. By Bradley's recount, he and Antoinette had a one-night stand where Antoinette became pregnant with Shaniya. Antoinette also had substance dependency issues and wasn't really able to care for a young child. So Bradley ended up requesting full guardianship of Shaniya, which Antoinette pretty much encouraged. She agreed to it happily, and she wanted a more stable life for her daughter. There never seemed to be a guardianship hearing, a court case, no custody disputes, nothing like that. Antoinette wanted Bradley to raise their daughter Shaniya. So from I think around the age of 1, Shaniya was raised by her dad. This was until around September 2009. Bradley said that Antoinette had gotten a job around that time and seemed to be more responsible, so he wanted to give her the chance to be a mother to Shaniya and for Shaniya to have her biological mother in her life, which I suppose any parents want for their kid. Like, they want both of their parents. They want their child to experience both of their parents in their lives. So from September 2009, Shaniya was living with her mother. I'm not sure if it was like a permanent thing or just like a few nights a week, but from September onwards, there was regular contact between the two. However, Antoinette lived in a small mobile home with her sister Brenda, Brenda's partner, and their kids. It was just a super tight fit, but they wanted it to work for Antoinette to have her daughter. So it's now November time in 2009, and Antoinette had Shaniya. According to Antoinette, around 5 to 5:30, Shaniya woke up and woke Antoinette up, and they had some time together where Antoinette said she put Shaniya back into bed to rest so that Antoinette could also go back to sleep for a little while. Here, Shaniya was sleeping in a bed with another child. I am super confused on who this child is. Some say it's Shaniya's brother, some say a cousin. There are differing accounts. There is a chance that it was another child of Antoinette's there. Like I said, I'm super confused. About an hour later, Antoinette wakes up and finds that Shaniya is not in the bed. She looks around their home and can't find Shaniya anywhere. She then woke up Brenda, and no one's seen Shaniya. So Antoinette was encouraged to call the police by Brenda, but decided she would check around the trailer park first, as she's suggesting Shaniya could have just wandered away in that time period. So after checking with all neighbours and scanning the area, she can't find Shaniya and returns to call the police. That's like an hour later, and that's after her sister Brenda continued pushing her to contact the police. Antoinette then reports her daughter missing and tells police she doesn't know if Shania's just walked out of their home or what, because Shaniya is able to use the doors and unlock them. But she said the door was locked the previous night, but not whether the doors were found unlocked that morning. She said she was hoping Shaniya hadn't just walked out, which I think is a really odd thing to be hoping for, because I think if I was in that position, I would be hoping that my child had just walked out of the house, because the options are that they've just walked out of the house on their own and they could be found somewhere relatively close, or they were taken out. Like, those are the only two options. They've walked out on their own or they were taken out. I would be desperately hoping that they just walked out. However, police were suspecting foul play immediately because they thought it was unlikely for a 5-year-old girl to leave their home and just go walking out alone while it was still dark outside, and there was no sign of her anywhere. While police searched the home, they found feces on the porch and feces on the blanket discarded outside the home, which had supposedly come from inside the home, which they took for investigation. Police immediately started questioning. They had family go to the police station for interviews, and they had sniffer dogs come around and trace the Shaniya's scent around the park. The sniffer dogs actually couldn't pick up her smell throughout the area. There was no sign of Shaniya anywhere in that area. Police sent out Shaniya's photos to reporters covering the story, so Shaniya's image was being thoroughly circulated. They just wanted to try and find this little girl ASAP and reunite her with her family. So Antoinette went to the police station and answered all their questions. She was given full rein to leave whenever she wanted. She wasn't a suspect. Police just wanted all information that could help them find Shaniya. So she had full access to come and go as she wanted, but she said to police that she shouldn't be there for so long when she could be out looking for her baby, which you understand. She was told she was welcome to leave at any time to go and search for her child, but Antoinette didn't do that. She actually stayed answering police questions for 6 hours that day, instead of going out and looking for her child, which after complaining about that, you would think she would be like, let me leave, like give everything you can to help them find her, and then be like, I need to go now and look for my child too. That's just what I would think. It was only a matter of hours after the news broke of Shaniya's disappearance that a hotel worker called the police, saying a child matching Shaniya's description was seen in the hotel that day with a man. The man had signed in as Mario McNeil just after 6 a.m. and came to the front desk alone, giving some long story about being a single dad traveling with his young daughter to visit her biological mother in Virginia, and how she was sleeping in the car. So he got the hotel room and then carried the little girl through the hotel afterwards. Police came and checked the security footage and instantly recognized the little girl as being Shaniya, and she was being carried to a hotel room by this man. The footage was from around 6:11 that morning, so like around the same time that Antoinette first realized that Shaniya was missing. So police checked the room. They'd already checked out around 7:40, but they were able to confirm that the man registered, showing his real ID, and his name was Mario McNeil. So at least they could find him and Shaniya that way. In the footage, Shaniya didn't appear distressed. She was scooped up in the man's arms. She's not smiling. She doesn't appear happy, but she doesn't appear scared, screaming, crying. Like, she's not necessarily distressed. So that led to a police spokeswoman releasing a statement that Shaniya appeared well taken care of and that they have hope of finding her alive. An unidentified worker stated that he had seen Mario carrying Shaniya out of the hotel that morning, and he appeared really creepy and wouldn't speak to the hotel worker, and Shaniya appeared to be sleeping. He said he watched Mario put Shaniya in the car and leave. He'd also found 2 empty bags of what appeared to be cocaine in the room. Now, looking into Mario, police find numerous convictions, including assaulting women, drug possession, that sort of stuff. So they're only more desperate now to find him, knowing that he is likely dangerous, and they're still wanting to find Shaniya unharmed. They attempt contacting him, going to his house, etc., but they can't get in contact with Mario. They can't find him, so they start contacting his family. The following day, Antoinette goes back to the police station for more questioning. During this interview, Antoinette pointed the blame at her own boyfriend, Clarence Coe. He also had previous convictions, including assaulting women, breaking and entering, larceny, robbery. He had a long criminal history, so Antoinette started accusing him. Antoinette then claimed that she'd seen Clarence hitting Shaniya in the face early that morning after he had an argument with Antoinette, as if he was taking out his frustrations on Antoinette with Shaniya. Antoinette claimed she tried stopping him, but Clarence left the premise with their daughter in a car. There was also a neighbour that said they'd seen Shaniya in a man's car driving out of the park early that morning, and that the man could have been Clarence. So he was arrested and charged with kidnapping Shaniya. Another neighbour of Antoinette's made the comment to the media, though, that they didn't think it was Clarence because just after the kidnapping had been publicised, Clarence was at Antoinette's home comforting her, and that he was pacing back and forth, appearing more concerned about Shaniya's well-being than Antoinette was. But also that could have been seen as like fear of punishment on his side, or like if he had kidnapped Shania, he could then be like concerned and pacing, thinking he was going to get caught or whatever. I don't know. But there is also the fact of, had he just kidnapped a child, why would he be back at the house instead of like with the child or taking the child away further or something? I don't know. That just never sat right. Clarence claimed he cared for Shania like a parent would, and he loved when Shania called him daddy, and that they had formed a close father-daughter type of relationship. He kept pushing that he was innocent and he wanted to find Shania. He was kept in police custody though. Then, a few days into the investigation, Mario ended up surrendering himself to police on November 12th. He said he was out that night cheating on his partner and that he had previously dated Brenda, Shania's auntie, who was like living in the same home. But he had no idea who Shania was and he wasn't at their house. He denied the person on security footage being him, and when they showed him that he'd checked into the hotel with his own name, he said he must have lost his ID and that someone was now using it. After further pressure from police, Mario admitted he was actually in the hotel with Shania because he'd received a text from Brenda asking him to pick Shania up from their home, and now suddenly he knows who Shania is. He said he'd been asked to take Shania to a hotel to meet her relatives, who were supposed to get her to school on time. Mario denied knowing anything else, until, again, his story changed. He said he had taken her to the hotel where he got a room to do a few lines of coke, and then he received an anonymous call instructing him to take Shania to a laundromat, and that was where he dropped her off, that being the last time he'd seen Shania. But there was no text from Brenda asking him to pick up Shania, and there was no anonymous call made to his phone, so no story that he was actually telling could come close to making any sense to police or anyone else. Mario was charged with kidnapping, which he denied, and his attorney claimed Mario would be pleading not guilty to. Mario refused to help police with their search, saying he didn't know anything else, and he handed the little girl over, and that was what he was supposed to do. He couldn't help police any further. This led to Clarence being released because they couldn't have both kidnapped Shania, and Clarence was cleared. He said he didn't know who Mario was, though, so he didn't know why Shania would be with him, and that was confusing Clarence as well. If Clarence didn't know who Mario was and why Shania would be with him, police had no way of knowing why she would have been with him. Clarence also went public almost immediately, making appeals for Shania's return, saying she calls him daddy and that he just cares about her, that he is stressed and wants her home safely. I don't think Clarence is any type of good guy in this situation. I didn't think that anyway, obviously from his previous convictions, but his first reaction to this, while Shania is still missing, is claiming how he's going to sue the department for arresting him and just kind of wanting a payday out of all of this while Shania is actively missing, which should be the only thought in his head as far as I'm concerned. Meanwhile, Bradley, Shania's father, is devastated, saying he should have never let Shania stay at her mother's, and I think he was just there so desperately wanting to look after her and have her home that he was regretting all decisions that led to Shania disappearing, including having Shania go stay with Antoinette, especially while Antoinette's possibly got an abusive partner who is possibly also hurting Shania. I just guess the entire thing would be so hard on him as a father to understand what is going on and why his little girl is missing. Bradley was out making desperate pleas all throughout different news stations for his daughter to be returned safely. In one, he said, quote, Shania, if you're listening to Daddy, I miss you so much. I'm not going to give up. It would have been such a disturbing, heartbreaking time. This is a few days into the investigation. She's been missing now for 3 days or something. So disturbing. So, still on the 12th, police have Antoinette go to the station again, curious why she lied about her boyfriend taking Shania when Mario clearly had her. They showed Antoinette photos of Mario holding Shania. Antoinette then confessed to knowing that Clarence never took Shania, and she knew Mario took her. The only information Antoinette could give police was that Mario had been in a relationship with Brenda previously, and that was how he got Shania. And that was all they got from the interview before Antoinette left. Over the next couple of days, they questioned Mario. He admitted he'd spent the night on the 9th of November drinking and doing drugs, and that was when he started texting all of the women in his phone. Brenda's number was in his phone since they'd been in a relationship previously, and he texted her, but she was asleep and also with her partner where they lived with their children. So she wasn't responding, and he ended up giving them a lot of information on that night's events. 2 days later, on the 14th, Antoinette was called back into the police station for questioning. This one lasted 5.5 hours. During this interview, Antoinette claimed to have been having stomach pains and disclosed to police that she was pregnant again, and that's why she was in pain. They offered for her to go to the health department for examination, but she refused, stating that she just wanted to help find Shaniya. Here, a new account of the morning Shaniya disappeared was given. She claimed to have woken and found Shaniya missing, asked Brenda's boyfriend if anyone had been in the house. He said, quote, Mono, which is Mario's nickname, but Antoinette claimed not to have seen or heard him and had nothing to do with Shaniya's disappearance. Police then disclosed that Mario had already been questioned and had said Antoinette did know about Shaniya's disappearance and that they already knew what actually happened that morning, but they needed to hear it from her. Suddenly, Antoinette's story is changing. Antoinette said that Mario arrived that morning around 3 a.m. to have sex with Antoinette because he was owed $200 by her for drugs, and he came to the house demanding that he was either getting the money for the drugs or sex to repay the debt. But that somehow she ultimately offered him Shaniya to take to a motel room as payment, and then she said, quote, all he was supposed to do was have sex with her, and that he had said it would settle their debt. I understand how fucking sickening that is, and especially if your options are to either pay someone $200 or have sex with them yourself, most likely you would fucking make one of those options work. There are other people in the home. She could have gone and asked Brenda, if she didn't have the $200 on her, she could have gone and asked her sister. She could have asked her sister's partner. That is her baby fucking girl. Worst case scenario, she'd have sex with the man herself, but somehow she gives her 5-year-old child to this man, which is absolutely disgusting and sickening, and it only kind of gets worse from here. She then changed the story and said Mario was taking her to the motel room for another man to sleep with, her 5-year-old baby, but she didn't know who this man was. So she was willingly leaving her 5-year-old to go and be traumatized for the rest of her fucking life over a $200 drug debt. I don't understand how Mario was actually willing to take sex with Antoinette as payment, and yet somehow she hands over her baby girl. That will never make sense in my mind how, like I said, worst case scenario, she'd have sex with him if she couldn't get the $200 together in time. But she is choosing to damage her little girl for life rather than pay this man a measly $200 or just sleep with him. He didn't ask for Shaniya. She offered Shaniya. How does that happen? How do you offer your little baby? That will never make sense to me. You carry a baby for 9 months. I know she didn't have a relationship with Shaniya for a lot of Shaniya's life, but after you carry a baby for 9 months, how the fuck do you hand them over a few years later to some man to take to a hotel room just for $200 worth of drugs? It's sickening. I can't. And again, knowing the intention, she handed her baby over to someone knowing that the intention was for a grown-ass man to hurt her in a sexual way, to sexually assault her. That's what she handed her little baby over for. Antoinette claimed that Shaniya was supposed to be brought home safely afterwards, and by 6 a.m. she woke her sister and started searching the park. It came out that Brenda was encouraging Antoinette to call the police for nearly an hour before Antoinette did so. Antoinette went for a cigarette break, turned, asked how much longer she needed to be there for. Police responded not much longer. She went to the bathroom and returned to be put under arrest and no longer free to leave. Monday the 16th of November, Bradley went on CBS's The Early Show, saying he remained hopeful someone would bring Shaniya somewhere safe, such as a police station or hospital. He then said, quote, they can drop her off at Walmart. I don't care. He was just so desperately making a plea to get his daughter home safely. Only a few hours later that same day, Shaniya's body was found on the side of a road just outside of Fayetteville. This was after Mario had told his lawyers where he dumped her body, and they actually told police where to find Shaniya. So it was his own lawyers who disclosed to police, which is so cool because most of the time lawyers wouldn't do that because of attorney-client privilege and things like that. But they actually helped them find Shaniya. So thankful for that because she was a little baby and she deserved to be found. She appeared to have been dumped there for the 6 days of investigation. So it was very clear that she had passed away sometime, most likely in the hotel room, but sometime around that day anyway. Obviously, everyone had hopes of getting her back alive, which is just horrific how it turned out, and she should have been brought home alive. And this is super mega trigger warning for numerous offences involving a child. But her cause of death was asphyxiation. The medical examiner found blood on all genital swabs, which indicated extreme sexual trauma. The feces found on the blanket and porch, as I mentioned earlier, indicated that the sexual assault had first started inside the home, meaning Antoinette witnessed this happening to her baby girl and then let Mario leave with her, taking her, instead of just giving him $200 fucking dollars or making that stop. The feces would have been that he was doing it anally. I think either way, that little girl would have been screaming because it would have fucking hurt. And Antoinette, as a mother, decided that the best thing to do would be let her little baby go with that man and let that continue for her. Let Shaniya continue going through that instead of just fucking doing it herself, or, I don't know, calling the fucking police or doing something better than what she did. So she witnessed it happening and then sent him off, and there were other people in the house she literally could have asked to lend her money. Antoinette was charged with human trafficking, felony child abuse with prostitution, felony conspiracy to commit sexual offense of a child by an adult offender, first-degree kidnapping, second-degree murder, rape of a child by an adult offender, sexual servitude, and taking indecent liberties with a child. She is due out of prison in 2029, which is 4 years away, after 17 and a half years. So that's all the jail time she had to serve. So she was supposed to get 17 and a half years. She'll be let out most likely on parole after 10, which is 2029. And that is everything that she had to serve for doing all of that to her little baby girl that she was supposed to love and care for. Mario was charged with first-degree murder as well as sexual offense of a child by an adult offender, taking indecent liberties with a child, first-degree kidnapping, human trafficking, and subjecting a victim to sexual servitude. The jury sentenced him to death, so he is on death row actively right now. But the issue is that North Carolina have not conducted an execution since 2006. So who knows if he will ever actually be sentenced that way or if he'll just live out his life in prison, technically on death row, but they're not actually being sentenced to death, just living his life in prison. Antoinette also apologized to Bradley in court, claiming that she had been too proud to let his family continue caring for their daughter. She also said, quote, "I never said I was a perfect mother, but I was a good mother. I did what I had to provide for them. I did what I had to make sure they were all right. I didn't have any help from anybody." Which, that's an absolute fucking sickening statement to make after everything she did. She's a fucking shit mother, the worst of the worst. Even if Mario hadn't murdered Shaniya, she was setting that little girl up to be traumatized for the rest of her life over a $200 fucking drug debt. I don't understand how she could ever say that she was a good mother, because worst of the fucking worst. And I just think it's absolutely disgusting to think that if she was pregnant again during that police interview, I would just hope she never was able to care for her own child ever again, or any other kid. I would hope that she would never be allowed around children again, not be allowed to keep her own, all that sort of stuff. And luckily the Superior Court judge disagreed with her statement thoroughly, saying, quote, "You could have saved your daughter's life and you did not. You had the time, the opportunity, and the means to save Shaniya's life, and you did not. You are not a good mother. This did not have to happen." And he has ordered her to register as a sex offender for 30 years and suggested that she receive psychological counselling in prison, which I think is 100% fair, because no person in their right fucking state of mind could do that to a fucking baby, let alone their own baby that they carried for 9 months. Makes no sense. So that is that case, and I think, yeah, it is extremely traumatizing, and I really hope no one was traumatized listening to it. I know it's just like such a disturbing case, but I just think, again, it's a case that needs to be said, because that woman is going to be out in 4 years after what she did to that little girl, after what she allowed that little girl to go through, and she's going to be out in just 4 years. It makes me sick. But on a slightly lighter side, apparently Shaquille O'Neal paid for Shaniya's funeral costs after hearing about it on the news. He's always seemed like such a big family man. Like, he would do anything for his own kids. I've seen him bring them to interviews and stuff, and he just seems like he would do anything in the world, anything they ask for. He just treasures his kids, and I just think it's really kind that he did this for another little girl too, to give her the funeral that she deserved. I believe it was around 2,000 people appeared to show their respect for Shaniya at her funeral and mourn her and everything. I think it was very publicized, and people really, obviously everywhere, no one believed that little girl should have gone through what she did. As sickening as it is, I think it's a story that needs to be shared, and I think longer sentences need to be taken out for people that do things like this to their children and other people's children, any child, any innocent victim that doesn't deserve this. A 5-year-old little girl is completely defenseless, and I think 10-year sentence with like parole after 10 is such a disturbing sentence. It's so nowhere near long enough, and I just think things like this need to be more publicised to get longer sentences, really. And that is everything I have on this case for today. We'll be back next week with hopefully something a little bit lighter that doesn't involve a minor, and we will see you then. Take care. Bye.